Yo guys, welcome to the Zelda fiction. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto Naruto got harem with Delia Ketchum? Part 3. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. 1 hour later, outside Pewter City Gym. Naruto stood just outside the gym, right in front of the doors leading to the first stepping stone of his journey. Misty stood just to his left, waiting for him to enter. Naruto took a breath and placed his hands on the door, and with a shove, he threw them open, calling out, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Ketchum, and I challenge the leader of this gym to a Pokemon battle." His voice carried out into the darkness of the voice, strong and firm. Suddenly, one by one, the overhead lights turned on, covering the room in a white glow, as they slowly revealed more and more to the challenger and his friend. Until finally, all was revealed. Misty and Naruto looked at the man sat cross-legged in the center of the room, his back faced them as his voice called back. Brock Stone. He looked back at the pair as he finished, his face set the same as his surname. "Accept your challenge." The now named Brock stood up from his lotus position on the ground and slowly made his way down the stairs from where he was sat. "Is this your first gym match?" he questioned, his voice mature and serious. "This match is for league authorization. There are special rules," he finished as he came to a stop in front of Misty and Naruto. The golden-haired trainer nodded, his eyes locked on the gym leader. "Yes, I am aware of this. What are the rules of your gym?" Out of the corner of his eye he could see Misty making her way towards the bleachers to watch out of harm's way. However, not before mouthing a good luck to him before she went. Brock made a motion that told Naruto to follow him as they made their way to the designated battleground. "We will use 2 Pokemon each." "Understood." He didn't have to turn his head or look with his seemingly closed eyes to know his challenger nodded. "Good," Brock stated as he pointed to a white box painted on the floor opposite is where he was stood in one of his own. "Stand over there so we may begin our battle," he told Naruto as the younger trainer made his way over. Upon reaching his stop, Naruto spun on his heel to face his first league battle. "How long have you been a Pokemon trainer?" called out Brock in a slightly bored and taunting tone. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the hidden massage as he spoke. "About 3.5 weeks," he shouted back as his hand went to grab his chosen Pokeball for this match. "Why, is that a problem?" he remarked in a sarcastic fashion. Brock scoffed as he raised his hand from its crossed position on his chest. He brought his thumb and middle finger together. "Suit yourself, as gym leader I have to accept all challenges. So let's just get this over with." He snapped his fingers, the sound echoing throughout the gym. The wall to Naruto left made a clunking noise as it raised up, followed by a grinding noise that made the ground shake. Misty held the handrail to steady herself from her place above the field. Looking down, she saw that the floor was changing from its smooth surface to a more rocky terrain that was littered by boulders everywhere. Naruto quickly surveyed his surroundings, thinking up any plans to use the area to his advantage. From what he had gathered, this gym was a rock-type gym. Even a child could have figured that out, seeing as Pewter City has always been known for its stones, as that flint guy said. Brock brought up his Pokeball, as did Naruto, bring it to point out at the one across from them. "Let the match begin," cried Brock as he threw his Pokeball out towards the field. "Onyx, go," he yelled as the giant rock snake landed with thud, roaring its arrival to the skies before looking at the trainer before him. Naruto almost smirked as he beeped his throwing arm. Aiming high, his arm shot forward as he threw his Pokeball into the air above everyone. Their eyes followed the spinning ball as Naruto shouted, his eyes and face full of excitement. "Katsu. You got this." The aura Pokemon burst from the ball in a shower of white light and landed on the stony floor without even the slightest of noises and raised his arms as he took a battle-ready stance. "What Pokemon is that?" thought Brock as they gazed upon the strange creature. He turned his eyes to the blonde new trainer. "This one doesn't seem like the other 3 from Palette I have fought recently." Brock took a moment to observe his challenger's stance while they all screamed confidence and slight arrogance. "This one looks like he knows he's going to win. He has complete faith in both his and his Pokemon's abilities," he grinned to himself. "So, that means that I can hopefully go all out this time." His anticipation was building. While he may personally want to be a Pokemon breeder doctor, he did like a good battle every once in a while. "Hey," he called out to Naruto, getting the younger trainer's attention. "What type of Pokemon is that? I have never seen it before in my life." The breeder side of him just demanded he knew, and the doctor side was just the same in case he was to ever treat the same species again. Naruto smirked as he reached into his bag and pulled out his custom-made Pokédex. Flicking through the various Pokemon, Naruto stopped on his desired one and presented Brock the information page as he turned up the volume so he could hear from across the battlefield. The Pokédex's robotic voice soon sated the curiosity of everyone that was wondering the same thing. Lucario, the aura Pokemon. It is the evolved form of Riolu. Both Pokemon are from the Sinnoh region. It is said that by catching the aura emanating from others, it can read their thoughts and feelings. A well-trained Lucario can sense and feel the auras of people and Pokemon alike for miles. Naruto snapped the deck shut as he put it back in his pocket. Above in the stands looking down. Misty looked at Katsu with wide eyes. What a cool Pokemon, even if it wasn't a water type. What a awesome looking Pokemon. Her thoughts were voiced by someone next to her, making her look over to the person next to her. Or should she say family next to her. There sat next to her were 10 smiler looking kids, 5 boys and 5 girls, all with the same closed looking eyes and tan skin tone as the gym leader below. Deciding to be friendly, Misty stuck her hand out with a smile towards the oldest looking boy that spoke earlier. "Hello, I'm Misty." The boy smiled back and shook her. "I'm Forrest, nice to meet you." Taking his hand back, Forrest pointed to the identified Lucario in the ring. "Do you know where your friend got the Pokemon?" His voice was almost giddy, as if he wanted one for himself. Misty shook her head and gave him an apologetic smile. "No." Looking down at the Lucario, she continued, "He had that before I met him." "Sorry." Sending Forrest one more smile, Misty decided to change the subject. "Are you all related to Brock down there?" she asked in an attempt to make polite conversation. She, however, was not prepared for the onslaught of 10 different voices against her ears. "Alright, that's enough," said Forrest, calming down his siblings. "Remember your manners," he sighed before turning to the slightly giggling Misty as she covered her mouth with her left hand. "Sorry about that, but yes, we are all his brothers and sisters." They both looked down to the arena as both battlers prepared for combat. "We come here to cheer our brother on every time he fights. It's the least we could do after everything he has done for us." Misty looked over at the proud family as they cheered for a few silent minutes, wondering what they meant by that, but decided not to pry. It wasn't her place, so she turned her head to look at the upcoming battle. That, if the fight between Naruto and Samurai was anything to go by, was going to be good. The battleground below. Naruto steadied his breathing and closed his eyes, reaching out through their bond, prompting Katsu to do the same. When he felt Naruto brush against his mind, he spoke to Katsu and gave his first orders. "Katsu, this is my first gym battle and your first battle as a trainer. Because of your higher than normal starter level, it might be some time before anyone pushes us, but I think that we should hold back some of our strength to enjoy the fights. You alright with that?" "I don't intend to lose, just to not beat up his Pokemon too much," he questioned through the bond. Knowing the pride of fighting types, it was quite unlucky for him to agree. The same goes for Amaterasu. Even though they weren't classified as dragon type, they sure do have the same ego and pride as one. He was just lucky that she believed he was worth to train her and trusted him. Naruto almost laughed at the pure annoyance and sent through the bond at his request. "Fine. But you owe me one," Katsu answered after a little bit, although he was greatly reluctant, something Naruto could feel in abundance through their connection. This time Naruto chuckled for real as he and Katsu opened their eyes to the real world again. Setting their sights on the goal ahead, their eyes hardened and seemed glow a dark blue very slightly. To any onlooker, the two pair blue would have made quite the imposing picture in the dark room. Brock tensed in preparation for the first move, ready to order a counter at any moment. Unknown Pokemon means a possibility of unknown moves. Must be ready for anything. He was greatly unsettled by the look on both Naruto and his Pokemon, Katsu's, face. It was the look of someone with battle experience and knew what they were doing. Naruto spoke first, deciding to get in an early hit. "Katsu. Rush in with extreme speed, and when you're close use power-up punch." Everyone gasped when Katsu vanished from his spot with a shiner and appeared in the air, right above the head of the great rock snake, his fist beaked back with a bright orange coat covering it. The entire Stone family's eyes actually opened wide with surprise, as well as Misty. "Wow, fast," were the collective thoughts of everyone bar Naruto as he shook his head. What happened to taking it easy? Thinking fast, Brock went on the defensive. "Onyx, harden and use bide. Try and hold on for as long as you can." Onyx was covered in a metallic shine as he closed his eyes and braced for impact. Katsu's fist slammed down into the head of the rock snake, dealing a super effective attack with massive damage. Onyx's face met the ground with a loud crash, kicking up dust from the force. Brock gritted his teeth and sent his family that look, the one that stopped them from doing something they shouldn't do. He knew what they were about to do, and it would have hurt both his and Onyx's pride. Above in the stands looking down. The audience looked on in wonder. That was some damage. Misty looked over at the Stone family as they stood up from their seats, their look of wonder and awe replaced by a look of worry and concern. They were quick to sit back down as the eldest of them sent them that look. The one that he used whenever they were about to do something stupid. Some of them groaned in annoyance, but they all kept that same look as they looked at the dust cloud covering the field from them, along with the fate of their brothers Onyx. Misty watched as Forrest gripped the handle tightly and barely picked up his faint whisper of "You got this, big brother, we all believe in you." Misty turned her eyes towards the slowly falling Katsu and shook her head. What type of training was he put through, and what type of sadistic person put them through it? Somewhere deep inside the depths of Naruto's mind, a great and giant fox was awoken from his fox nap by a sneeze. He just shook it off and went right back to his ever so important sleep that he seemed to need more and more nowadays. Probably nothing important, he was getting on in years now. Back to the battleground below. Naruto looked up at his Pokemon as Katsu was outlined by a soft red glow before it vanished with a trace. He called out the next move before he even fell to the ground. Katsu, follow up with a force palm. The silver Pokemon's paw ignited a deep blue as he launched himself into the dust cloud. The great wind pushed the dust away from the battlefield. Naruto just stood there, the dust not affecting him, while everyone brought their arms up to cover their eyes and faces from the airborne dirt. "Onyx!" shouted Brock in worry, having heard his Pokemon cry out in pain before the dust blocked his vision. When he and everyone else were able to see again, they saw the form of the great rock snake laid out with swirls in its eyes, defeated. Brock gave the same type of sigh as he recalled his Pokemon. He knew he was fighting a losing battle, but he had to try. Taking out his second Pokeball, Brock called out to Naruto. "That was some deadly combinations of moves. I must congratulate both you and your Pokemon." Naruto and Katsu nodded with identical cheeky smiles on their faces. "But I must ask, I saw Katsu light up red before that second move, force palm, I think you called it." Brock scratched his chin and thought. "Why is that?" he asked Naruto, curiosity in his voice. Naruto looked at Katsu for a moment before looking back across at Brock. "Well," he started, trying to figure out a way without giving away anything much. "Before I told Katsu to use focus palm, I made him use something called power-up punch, which boosts the user's attacking power when the move makes contact with the opponent. Hence the red glow, which signified the boost taking effect." Naruto finished as he crossed his arms over his chest. Brock clicked his tongue against the roof of his mouth. "Quite the powerful move," he thought out loud. Taking a guess, he asked Naruto to confirm his thoughts. "From what I saw, would I be correct to assume it was a fighting type move?" He sighed again when all he got was a nod from both trainer and Pokemon. "Thought so." He rubbed his temples. "At least I'm not fighting the standard grass or water type Pokemon, that gets old really quick, but a fighting type." Brock thought to himself as he looked at the Pokeball in his hand, his thoughts in turmoil. Naruto, seeing Brock's internal struggle, called out to the conflicted gym leader. "Hey Brock," he shouted, getting the man's attention. "It's okay to surrender to a stronger trainer. Nobody will think any less of you if you want to put your Pokemon's safety above your own pride." From anyone else it may have sounded arrogant and beepy, but way Naruto's voice only held a strong and comforting tone to it, made him see like he really wanted to help out his fellow trainer. Brock seemed to pick up on that as he nodded reluctantly. Battling never really was his strong point anyway. So with a sigh he raised his right hand above his head and called out, his voice carrying in the silent gym. "I, Brock Stone, the leader of the Pewter City Gym, hereby forfeit the match." Thus making the challenger, Naruto Uzumaki Ketchum from Pallet Town, the winner. Above in the stands looking down. Silence met Brock's declaration as the gym leader made his way to the victor while reaching into a pocket on the side of his cargo pants. The Brocklings watched with mouths agape. That was a first. Never in the whole of Brock's gym leader career had they seen him willingly surrender a match. Not once. So it came as quite a shock to see him do so now. However, just from seeing that display of power from the challenger, they couldn't really fault him, even if they didn't like it. Misty shook her head as she stood to make her way down the stairs. Just like the last time she watched Naruto fight, she was left with a sense of wonder and awe. His Pokemon were unreal, and she didn't even know who his third Pokemon was yet. She had seen the weakest of his team, and now she had just seen the strongest of his team. She wanted to see the middle piece between the two. As she made her way down the stairs, leaving behind the stunned quiet family, she couldn't help but wonder. Were his eyes really glowing before the match, or was that just her own pair of teal orbs playing tricks on her? It seemed too real to just be the overhead lights catching his azure blue at a weird angle. So, just who was Naruto Uzumaki Ketchum? She shook her head again. What she knew was that he was a nice and caring trainer who saved her life and had a dream of being a Pokemon master. Whatever that entailed, she wasn't quite sure. Back with Naruto. He and Katsu walked towards Brock. They met in the middle. Naruto and Katsu stood right in front of Brock as they joined their hands in a friendly and sportsmanly manner. They smiled at each other, respect in their grasp, nodding at each other. "That was some battle," Brock said finally as they took their hands back. His reached into his pocket again. Pulling his closed hand out, he spoke. "It is my honor to present you the Boulder Badge." He unrolled his fisted hand, palm skyward. Resting in his hand was a small gray stone-like badge. Naruto took it with a steady and strong grasp. It glinted, just like his eyes, but for entirely different reasons. "As proof you have beaten me, you are one step closer to the league. Congratulations." Brock finished with a smile, despite his defeat. Naruto threw the badge up into the air with a flick of his wrist. He snatched the small symbol of his victory and progress out of the air and held it out towards the light, a happy smile on both his and his Pokemon's face. Naruto looked at it with joy and confidence. He was one step closer to his dream, and his determination was stronger than ever. He turned around to Katsu and put his closed fist out towards the Pokemon, a gesture they had both adopted a while ago. The silver aura Pokemon connected his paw to his trainer's fist with a happy chuckle. We won out first gym battle Katsu, we are one step closer to our dream of becoming a Pokemon master, Katsu nodded with a happy smile. Misty ran over to the two as they celebrated their newest victory. Well done Naruto, Katsu, that was some fight she finally said when she got close enough. How is Katsu so strong? Naruto chuckled as he rubbed the back of his head bashfully thanks Misty, my master has always said I had a knack for battling he and Katsu shuddered, surprising Misty and Brock as for why Katsu is so strong, he looked off to the side, his eyes glazed in a horror-filled remembrance let's just saw we had a brutal teacher, and leave it at that he shuddered again. All of those beating he had suffered at the hands of his sadistic sensei, which he called training, flashed through his mind. Just as Misty was about to put her hand on his shoulder to try and calm down his shaking, Naruto gave both her and Brock his Vulpixie grin, waving off their worried looks with his cheery smile. It gave me and my Pokemon the power to defend those precious to us so, at the long run, it was worth it, he finished with his eye closed, while Katsu nodded his head in agreement. Brock and Misty looked on in silence, it wasn't long before Naruto opened his eyes and spun on his heel, turning towards the front door, and started to walk out to his next destination. Just as he and Katsu were about to pass the threshold, Naruto turned his head to look at the two of them over his shoulder. Misty, he called to the orange-haired water-type specialist, you coming or do I have to leave you here with Brock? Misty quickly ran to catch up with Naruto as he left the gym, the doors closing behind her as she left. Brock sighed as he crossed his arms over his chest. It must be nice to have a dream and be able to actually try and achieve that dream. His own dream was to become a world-class Pokemon breeder doctor, but with both his parents away, he was left to take care of his siblings, all 10 of them. He sighed again, it must be nice. Suddenly, just as he was about to leave to have his Onyx healed the gym doors burst open again, thinking it was another challenger, he spoke without even looking back. You'll have to wait, I need to get my Pokemon healed before our battle, come back another time. He froze, an angry frown on his face, when he heard the person speak. He knew that voice all too well. I'm not here for a battle the voice was old and remorseful, full of regret and shame. It's been a while. Brock turned around to face the man that dared to enter his gym. Yes it has, a very long while. Dad. Outskirts of Pewter City, Route 3. Naruto and Misty walked at a steady pace towards their next destination and to Naruto's next gym battle in Cerulean City. To Naruto's curiosity and slight worry, Misty was more than a little hesitant about the idea of going to Cerulean City, but decided not to push it. If she wanted him to know, she would tell him. Until that time, Naruto was more than happy to just provide her silent support or listen to the peaceful nature as they walked, him with his hands behind his head and her clutching her bag stood to his left. Naruto smirked when he heard the rapid sound of footfalls on the dirt road and felt the familiar aura coming up behind them. If his guess was correct, then they would be getting one more traveling companion on their journey. Wait up. Called the familiar voice of Brock as he came to a stop just behind them, crouched down, bracing himself on his knees, gasping for breath. Naruto and Misty turned around to look at him as he gathered himself. Brock stood up and readjusted his backpack, would it be alright if I travel with you guys? He asked pleadingly. Misty looked at Brock in shock. What about all of your brothers and sisters? Who's going to take care of them now that you're gone? She said desperately, they seemed like such nice people and she didn't want them to be left alone. Naruto jumped in with his own question also, what about your gym? Doesn't someone need to be there for that as well? Although his voice was not as desperate as Misty, it still held a questioning tone. Brock smiled at the pair as he spoke. My dad has finally come back and has told me that he will take care of everything. He also told he that even if he failed at his dream doesn't mean I will fail at mine, so he gave me this chance, and I don't want to throw it away, he said to his hopefully traveling companions. Naruto nodded, his mind already made up, but decided to clear something up first, and what exactly is your dream? If it's becoming a Pokemon master then you'll have a little competition from me, he said playfully, making Brock chuckle and Misty giggle. Brock shook his head, he looked out at the water beside the road, watching as a pod of Magikarp swam by, most likely a family. No, it's not that, my dream is to become a world-class Pokemon doctor and breeder. Battling never really was my strong point, but I had to take over the gym after my dad left. His voice was soft and calm as he spoke his ambition. Naruto was sure that if he could see his eyes, he would see a sparkle as he declared his dream. Naruto looked at Misty, staring her right in her teal eyes, his own firm and strong. Misty sighed, from the short time she had known him, when he got that look in his eyes, it was almost impossible to convince him otherwise. He sure was a stubborn idiot, although, she didn't really mind having someone else tag along. So with another sigh, she nodded her acceptance to his unasked question. If that's the case, started Naruto as a happy smile broke out on his face while he gave Brock a thumbs up, then we will be honored to have the next best Pokemon doctor join us, he finished with a cheer, showing his support for his newest friend's dream. Misty just nodded with a soft smile, agreeing with Naruto's statement. Brock gave them a smile of his own, glad that he was given this opportunity very few were allowed. Thanks you two, you have no idea what this means to me, he said, gratefully. Naruto just waved it off like he normally does. So all three set up for their next destination, looking forward to their individual dreams. One for a Pokemon breeder and doctor, one of water-type master and another for Pokemon master and champion. What a varied and unique group this was. Forest near Route 4, surrounding Mount Moon, a few days later. It had been a few days since the crew had left Pewter City, their trip through Mount Moon has surprisingly been very calm. Apart from a few Zubits here and there wasn't anything to really talk out. So with the great Mount Moon out of the way, they decide to take a break and rest for a while. They found a nice clearing near the road and camped out for a few days. Today was the day that they chose to continue on to Cerulean City, despite Misty's pleading not to. After she had told Naruto why she was so adamant against going there, he understood. He, however, convinced her that he need to go there for a gym badge. So she, albeit reluctantly, sucked up her pride and agreed. Didn't stop her from complaining though. The sun was barely rising before Naruto was up out in a clearing, away from the sleeping Brock and Misty at their makeshift campsite. Sat in a lotus position, eyes closed and hands closed and pressed together in his lap. Katsu sat in front of him in the same pose, both deeply frozen in meditation. Multiple Pidgey, Rattata and Pokemon of various shapes and sizes were sat near and even on the two, as they sat like statues. Suddenly, Naruto's necklace was set ablaze in a rainbow of colors covering the clearing in a mystic-like glow. A few Pokemon jumped and ran for cover from the strange rock that hung from the blonde trainer's neck. Katsu twitched as a white light wrapped around his body. 4 arcs of blue and red energy came from his shrouded form and made their way towards the still Naruto. Said trainer's necklace produced 4 arcs of energy of pure white color that shot at the approaching energy. They connected with a flash as they seemed to battle for dominance. It was not long before the beams from Naruto won out, creating 4 chain-like links between him and his Pokemon. Katsu started to sweat and breath heavy, trying to control the sudden power burst before it took control of him. He felt a supportive brush against his mind, making him push himself even farther for his trainer's sake. The 4 appendages on the back of his head lengthened and started to wave around in a non-existent wind. The fur covering his chest seemed to extend behind him on the ground, giving him a cloak-like appearance. His earlier calm breathing turned labored as sweat soaked his fur. He could feel his trainer's worry over the bond, but didn't have enough time to send back reassuring thoughts, for he was too busy trying to tame the power of Mega Evolution. Normally, the only thing you would need to Mega Evolve would be the Activation Stone and the Key Stone, along with a strong bond between the trainer and Pokemon that was trying to Mega Evolve, but that was for normal Pokemon only. Pokemon like Lucario that are in touch with their aura have a chance of going berserk. The chance is higher the more powerful the Lucario is. Question is. So with Katsu being as powerful as his is, you get the picture. To counter this, after some brainstorming with Kyu, Naruto came up with the idea of trying to do it while mediating to try and control the power surge, along with the aura flux. This was their first try doing it. Katsu panted as the glow subsided, showing his mega evolved form to the world. After a few minutes both he and Naruto opened their eyes to look at the other. Naruto nodded with pride in his multicolored eyes. Katsu sent him a warm but weak smile before his eyes rolled to the back of his head as he reverted back in a shower of color that floated up and disappeared. Just as he was about to collapse face first into the ground, a red beam caught him and brought him back into his Pokeball to rest and recuperate. Naruto looked down at the house of his longest and strongest Pokemon with a soft smile. They and he were getting stronger and stronger each passing day. They were all going to be claiming the champion's title before they knew it. Standing up from his seat on the floor, Naruto put Katsu's ball into his bag and stretched, his bones clicking and creaking from their stiff positions after being still for so long. He was just about to make his way back in time to have some of Brock's amazing beeping, which they found out was much better than his own. Not like his, wasn't that bad, just Brock's was better. However, a high-pitched whine assaulted his sharper than human ears. Naruto's head shot to the left. Whatever that was sounded like it was in a lot of pain. Without his notice his feet were already in motion, carrying him to the source of the cry at a fast pace. Taking control of his body again, he pushed forward at a much faster pace than before, ducking and dodging all of the low-hanging branches and trees. It wasn't long before he found the source of the cry, and what he saw shocked and angered him. There laying on the floor was a silver EV looking blooded and beaten with a smaller brown EV standing above it, pawing at the ground, yipping and yelping at the bigger EV, trying to support the shiny evolution Pokemon. Naruto could pick up small parts of what he was saying, "I'm sorry, and it's my fault even, please don't close your eyes," were some of the words Naruto could hear from the smaller brown EV as its voice dropped below his seeming superhuman hearing. The silver EV raised its head and licked the brown one's cheek trying to offer some sort of comfort. Naruto closed his eyes to try and bite back the tears, before he could do this though, he saw the destroyed remains of a Pokeball or two near the pair. He grit his teeth in rage, his eyes glowing a slight red in the shade of the tree. He took a breath to calm himself and stepped out of his hiding spot and made his way to the pair of EVs. The bigger EV's head turned to his direction and it jumped up with a speed that surprised Naruto, considering its condition. It bared its teeth to Naruto when he took a step closer, pushing the smaller EV behind its bigger body, ignoring the yells of, "Don't Artemis, you need to rest," from the brown EV. "Stay behind me Apollo," said the silver EV named Artemis, its voice soft and feminine, but was laced with a badly hidden pain and exhausted. Artemis growled dangerous when Naruto took another slow step forward. "Stay back human, one step closer and I'll rip your throat out," her teeth glinted ominously, drawing attention to her long fangs. "Apollo, when I say now, run," she whispered to the aforementioned EV behind, hiding her wince when she applied too much weight to her right foreleg, blood running down at an alarming rate. Naruto raised his hands in a placating manner, trying to defuse the tense situation. "I'm here to help," he said in a calm and comforting tone. He saw Artemis's legs muscles loosen, but her growling stayed the same. Naruto pushed more of his aura out into the air, in hopes of calming her and the EV behind her down some more, even if it was only slightly. "I promise that I won't hurt you, or that EV behind you. You have my word," he spoke with a strong warm tone, one that screamed friendly. He took a step forward and when he saw that neither reacted he took another, but froze when her growling got louder. Not taking her eyes off the human, Artemis spoke to her younger brother, "When I say count down to go, I'll jump at the human, you will run and don't look back." Just as Apollo was about to argue back, she cut him off. "No, listen to me," she yelled, startling the other EV into silence. She sighed as she spoke again, "I promised mom and dad that I would take care of you." Artemis sent Apollo a soft smile, taking her eyes off of Naruto for a split second. "And I plan to do just that." She was cut off as she collapsed, her strength leaving her, her blood running out across the grass, her breath coming out in short wheezes. "Artemis!" yelled Apollo as he ran to her side, licking her wounds, trying to stop the blood. "Please don't die," he screamed, his young and childlike voice stricken with grief. "We've already lost mom and dad." He nudged her side, his tears wetting her silver fur. "Don't leave me too, you're the only one left, you can't die. You always were the strongest out of the family, come, you're invisible, I could never beat you. If you die I'll seem really weak and we can't let that happen." He tried to laugh, but it just came out like a wet series of breaths. "Don't leave me alone, sister," he whispered, the despair thick in the air. "I don't want to be alone." He dropped like a dead body beside his sister, listening to her breathing. They were coming fewer and fewer now. "Please," his voice barely a whisper on the wind, but the wind carried to Naruto, breaking his heart. "Screw this," declared Naruto as he rushed forward, his aura powering up along with his psychic. He came to a sliding stop right next to the badly bleeding EV and when he heard the weak growling he snapped. "Be quiet. If you want your sister to live, let me take a look at her." His loud and demanding voice silenced any protest. Mainly because of the volume, but also because of the confusion of how he knew they were related. Apollo's eyes widened when Naruto's hands were coated in a soft pink as he ran them over Artemis's body. Right before his eyes all of the critical wounds closed up, leaving behind her blood-coated silver fur. Soon Naruto slumped back on his ass, sweat dripping down his brow, breathing heavy, but with a happy smile. After taking a few gulps of air, he gave Apollo a tired smile. "I've stopped the bleeding and closed all of the main wounds. She is unconscious, she should however wake soon, but she will live," he summed up, giving Apollo his Vulpixie grin. Apollo looked up at this human with his mouth agape. Was that Heal Pulse a Pokemon move? How did a human know a Pokemon move? His dad always said that it was impossible unless they were a Aura Guardian, he breathed out in an odd tone. Naruto chuckled as he nodded his head while reaching over to scratch Apollo behind the ear. The young Pokemon purred in bliss at the action and pushed into the hand, wanting more. "Wait," he said, pulling back, "can you understand me?" he asked, looking the blonde trainer in the eye. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, his Vulpixie grin still in place from earlier. "Yeah, I can understand most, if not all, Pokemon because of my mastery over my aura." He stuck his hand out to the brown EV, making the small Pokemon look at it in confusion and curiosity. "My name's Naruto Uzumaki Ketchum, it's nice to meet you Apollo." He tilted his head to the side while scratching his chin. "That is your name, right? Sorry if I got it wrong." Might have misheard it in the excitement. He gave Apollo a sheepish grin. Apollo nodded stupidly. An Aura Guardian, a really life Aura Guardian. And Aura Guardian was right in front of him and saved his sister's life. Wow. I've always wanted to meet an Aura Guardian after our dad told us about them when we were kids." He shook his head while looking down at his sister, happy that she was breathing easy, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. "Never thought I would have the privilege to meet one though," he mused. Naruto laughed for a bit before calming down, already feeling his energy come back to him. His vitality always stunned him and everyone around him, but he wasn't complaining, and neither will his wife, said one of Professor Oak's assistants, before his female co-worker punched him with a blush. Whatever that meant. After a few moments of silence, Naruto spoke up again. "I'm sorry to ask this, but why was she in such a state anyway? What happened?" He asked but regretted it almost immediately when he saw Apollo's eyes darken, while he continued to watch over High Sister's sleeping form. Apollo spoke with a dangerous tone, his voice almost an animalistic growl. "Our last trainer," he spat out the word with such anger, it almost made Naruto flinch, "decided no longer wanted us after we lost against a stronger trainer's Pokemon and released us straight after the battle." Still wounded, he finished with his teeth bared in anger, an anger one so young should not be able to produce. Naruto's hand was clenched so hard he bled, his red life-giving liquid coating the already blood-stained grass, an even darker shade of scarlet. What was his name and what did he look like? His voice was so low, it sent chills down Apollo's spine, the slightly fire-red glow his eyes held just added to the feeling. Betting where he was going with this, Apollo was more than happy to describe his last trainer. "He has dark blue hair and purple eyes. A pink shirt and brown cowboy vest, black jeans and white shoes. His name was Damien." Apollo smiled with a dark satisfaction when he saw the rage in Naruto's eyes. His old trainer was going to get what he deserved. Naruto shook with rage. He was going to find this dirtbag and make him pay dearly. That was a promise, and you know him, he never goes back on his word. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself before he spoke again. "Hello Artemis, I know you've been awake the whole time. I would like to give both of you an offer that I would be honored if you accepted." The shiny Eevee slowly sat up to look at Naruto, wincing every now and then, and nodded her head after licking her brother in thanks. "Now, you both know that I'm an Aura Guardian, and I would like to ask you two to join my team." Route 4, next day. Misty watched as Naruto practically skipped with happiness as they walked down the dirt road of Route 4, leading to her hometown of Cerulean City. She felt an overwhelming sense of despair when she thought of home and her sisters, but was quick to shake the feeling off. Anyway, ever since Naruto had come out of the forest holding two strange black and gold Pokeballs, he had been prone to mood swings. One minute he was happy, incredibly so, then he was sad in anger, repeatedly clenching and unclenching his fist, as if he wanted to hit something or someone. Whenever she or Brock had asked Naruto what was the matter, he would just flash the both of them his usual grin and say, "Don't worry about me, I just need to pay someone back for his generosity." His voice was so sickly sweet that it was more than likely going to give his traveling companions diabetes if they heard it too often. It was rather unsettling to be honest, but the orange-haired trainer knew she had nothing to fear from her friend. However, despite all of this, she couldn't help but wonder. What type of Pokemon were inside of those strange luxury balls that Naruto held? Cause whenever she asked, she would just get his Vulpixie grin and whisper if it's a secret. Damn, did that piss her off, but not as much as the almost continuous blush she got whenever she saw his handsome face get like look. Naruto, however, was completely oblivious to the looks of both his traveling companions as he walked in front of the pair with a spring in his step while humming an unidentifiable tune. "My first Pokemon after leaving Pallet Town. One is even a shine too. How lucky am I," he thought to himself and giddy with excitement. "I still need to scan them with Dex though to find out what level they are and what moves and abilities they might have." His hand clenched slightly, causing Misty and Brock to look at his back with concern. "Just you wait, Damien," he practically spat out the name like it was poison. "When you see Apollo and Artemis again, you'll regret abandoning such awesome Pokemon," Naruto concluded with a deadly grin in his mind. Naruto reached into his bag and pulled out his custom-made black and orange Pokédex, Dexter. He also unclipped the two new additions from his team and held the shrunken balls in front of him as he flipped open his Dex. He pointed the inbuilt scanner and waited for the information to pop up on his screen as he clipped Apollo and Artemis's balls back onto his belt. Naruto's screen flared to life as it showed him Apollo first. He muted the volume as to keep them a secret from Brock and Misty as the two walked near him. Species: EV, the evolution Pokemon. Name: Apollo. Gender: male. Level: 14. Held item: none. Ability: anticipation. Info: a Pokemon with anticipation will shudder upon entering a battle. If an opponent has a move this is super effective against it, or a one-hit KO move such as Fissure, Horn Drill, Guillotine or Sheer Cold. It only activates when the ability bearer switches in, not when an opponent switches in. Known moves: Tackle, normal type. Quick attack, normal type. Swift, normal type. Baby Doll Eyes, fairy type. Big ground type. Naruto nodded with satisfaction, quick and nice move set for his level. Plus, he has a rare hidden ability, now that was awesome. He switched over to the page with Artemis's information and was just as shocked and blown away with what he found. Species: Shiny EV, the evolution Pokemon. Name: Artemis. Gender: female. Level: 27. Held item: none. Ability: adaptability. Info: adaptability increases the effectiveness of STAB, same type attack bonus, moves from the usual 1.5x to the 2x. Known moves: Growl, normal type. Tackle, normal type. Sand attack, normal type. Swift, normal type. Quick attack, normal type. Bite, dark type. Hovered, normal type. Takedown, normal type. Double team, normal type. Shadow ball, goes type. Retaliate, normal type. Naruto almost lost his footing when he finished reading, but he quickly caught himself before his face met the dirty road of Route 4. He waved off the curious and concerned looks that Misty and Brock sent him. Boy, were they going to be mad when he showed off his awesome and cool new friends. He just hoped that Artemis was a bit more like her brother by the time he introduced her to Brock. She sure did live up to her name in its regards to men in general. He was lucky that she trusted him enough to listen to what he had to say because he healed her. Cross that bridge when he come to it, concluded Naruto as he played out various scenarios of Artemis meeting Brock, all of which ended painfully for the Pewter City gym leader, out of his mind for the moment. His focus set itself on his next Grams badge and the training he was going to put Apollo and Artemis through. While they were powerful for normal trainers at this level, they were going to have some trouble fitting in on his already elite 4-level team. He was also looking forward to introducing Amaterasu to Brock and Misty. The only reason was quite the doozy: he really needed to find her a mate that she approves of, and soon, or things are going to be a pain in the ass during later years. He really hoped he found one soon. He hated dealing with his Charizard when she was like this. She should be fine in a few weeks, but she was going to be terribly moody and grouchy. Just before Cerulean City. After a slight but of silent and peaceful travel, the trio of adventurers reached a split in the road with a sign posted just before. Walking up, Brock read out the sign to his 2 traveling companions and friends. "That road leads to Cerulean City," he pointed to the right. "Well, I guess that means we're heading the right way." Just as he was about to continue on, something else on the sign's bottom right-hand corner caught his eye. Misty looked a little disheartened at the mention of their destination as her face dropped and eyes lost their sparkle slightly, along with her happy and fiery aura. Something that Naruto picked up on as soon as it happened. He turned his head to her and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Whatever her problem was obviously troubling her, and he would lend support wherever he could. Misty just gave him a happy but nervous smile and shook off his concern. Naruto gave her his own reassuring smile and patted her shoulder before walking forward to Brock's side. "What's this?" asked Naruto when he saw what his tanned friend was looking at. Gary was here. Naruto is a loser. Naruto just stared at it for a few seconds with a blank face, not displaying any emotions. "Well," he said as he stood from his hunched position to read the note. "Isn't it nice that I'm always on Gary's mind?" He sighed in mock sadness. "I'll just have to tell him that I like girls next time I see him." Naruto shook his head as he walked towards where the sign directed them. "I'm gonna have to think of a way to let the guy down gently. He may be a beepy douche, but no one deserves to have their heart crushed." He shrugged helplessly as he put his hands behind his head, fingers interlocked. Misty and Brock just stood there with mouths agape at the unexpected response. Seriously, where the hell did that come from? Was there some bad blood between the 2 Pallet Town trainers, or was this just some petty rivalry? Both looked at each other and shrugged just as helplessly as Naruto did. Must be another of Naruto quirks, they decide as they ran to catch up with the disappearing form of Naruto Uzumaki Ketchum. Cerulean City outskirts, 3 days later. Naruto whined Misty as she dragged her heels in the dirt slightly behind the blonde trainer and Brock. "Do we really have to go to Cerulean City?" she begged, her voice a pleading tone. Naruto sighed as Misty suddenly appeared right in front of him and Brock, holding her hands out as if she was about to get on her hands and knees. "Can't we just go to Vermilion City? It's right near the water and there's lots of neat Pokemon there, and you can watch all the giant yachts pull into the harbor." She closed her eyes and clasped her hands together, turning her head to the right. "And there's a little park way up on the hill where you can sit to watch the sunset." She let out a dreamy sigh, blushing red. "Oh, that's so romantic." Naruto looked at her with deadpan eyes and crossed his arms while tapping his foot. She spun around, her teal eyes sparkling just like when the sun hits the sea. "It's much better than Cerulean City, so let's get going." She cheered with her fist in the air. Brock shuffled on his feet as Naruto just stood there tapping his foot on the ground with his arms crossed over his chest. Naruto sighed as he rubbed the bridge of his nose in frustration, causing Misty to slump over in defeat. Walking up to her, Naruto grabbed her shoulders and turned her to look at him. Misty, he called out to the orange-haired water specialist. I need all of the 8 badges to join the league, one of the badges is in Cerulean City. I have to go there. Naruto sighed at the dejected look on Misty's face. How about, when we get there we immediately go to the gym so I can have my battle, then we leave straight afterwards on to the next city. We won't have to stay any longer than necessary. Is that alright with you, Misty? Naruto proposed. He didn't like making his friends do anything against their will, but this was a needed stop, he needed the badge. Misty didn't say a word as she looked down at her shoes before nodding slowly while muttering a small thank you. Naruto, she knew she was being selfish, but she just didn't want to see them again anytime soon. Dear God, the humiliation that awaited her at the evil hands of her sisters. However, deep down, she was also slightly afraid that if Naruto saw her sisters and their beauty, that he wouldn't want her to accompany him anymore. Why would anyone want to travel with the ugly duck anyway? Despite how crazy that sounded in her head, Naruto would never do anything like that. She couldn't help but feel a slight bit of worry at the notion. Naruto's face broke out into a massive smile at the nod before it quickly turned sheepish as he scratched the back of his head and looked over at the silent cook of their group. Sorry to ask this of you, Brock, but could you please get all of the supplies that we need while me and Misty go to the gym? Naruto asked, his grin still in place. Brock chuckled as he waved his hand in a dismissive manner. Sure, not a problem. Naruto sent Brock a thankful thumbs up with his Volpixie grin, making him look very much like the Pokemon he had in his possession. This look was very quickly becoming his trademark. Naruto stepped forward and pointed out to beyond the horizons in a rather dramatic fashion. Onto Cerulean City, double time, he shouted as he broke out into a sprint, his friends close at his heels, telling him to slow down. He, however, ignored their shouts as he laughed joyfully. He was so close to his second badge he could almost taste it. Cerulean City, later that day. The trio walked through the empty streets, taking in the sights as they passed over the bridge connecting the city in a nice look. So Naruto said as he looked around, absent-mindedly noting the quiet streets. This is Cerulean City, he concluded, looking at the silent Misty. Brock nodded as he took in the sights. Yeah. Pretty nice place, isn't it? He commented as the three came to a cross-section. Well, he said as he took the left path. I'm off to get some supplies, good luck with your gym battle, Naruto. I'm rooting for you, he shouted over his shoulder as he threw a wave at the two. Naruto waved back with a happy smile at the support, turning to Misty, he spoke to the shuffling girl. Would I be right in assuming that you're from Cerulean City? Naruto asked, almost rhetorically, and when he got a nod he pressed on. Would I also be correct in assuming that you know where the gym is? His eyes narrowed ever so slightly when he got a nervous nod this time, guessing that the reason why she didn't want to come back was inside that gym. Can you lead me to it, he asked politely, thinking up way to make it up to Misty for forcing her to come here, despite her wanting not to. Misty nodded, getting increasingly nervous and anxious at what was to come. She turned to the road leading to the right and without a word, started to lead Naruto to his upcoming gym battle. And to her sisters, the sisters that she just knew, were going to pick on her right in front of her friend. God, how embarrassing was this going to be? She was probably going to have to fight Naruto as the gym leader herself. If the last time she saw the gym was any indication. Also, going on Naruto's last fight that she had watched, she might as well give him the badge now, but her pride and stubborn attitude prevented her from doing such a thing. Her name was Misty Waterflower, and she wasn't going down without a fight. Even if it was a fight with the person of her affections. Naruto smirked as he saw Misty's steps get more and more confident. He whispered a small "That's the Misty I know" without even realizing he had said it. He never did like seeing his friends upset, and seeing Misty come back from wherever she was might refreshing. Now he could fight the gym leader with a clear mind as excitement built up in his belly. He just hoped that the gym leader was a nice person and a good battler. Right in front of the Cerulean City gym. After a few minutes of walking, the two came to a stop just after an archway of trees that led to clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a big beige building topped with an orange and pink roof. A giant dugong was plastered at the front in a rather obnoxious way, along with the word Cerulean Gym printed in the wave-like rim underneath the massive Pokemon. Misty came to a sudden stop, promoting Naruto to do the same as he sent her a questioning look. The orange-haired trainer gave Naruto a nervous smile and pointed towards the gym. Here it is, she said weakly. Cerulean City Gym, Misty finished while looking at Naruto. She hugged herself with her arms wrapping around her waist as she looked down. You just have to fight the gym leaders in there to get the Cascade badge, she provided in an attempt to off-put Naruto piercing look as his eyes tried to bore their way at her own. Naruto silently walked up to his usually fiery friend and pulled her into a hug, to which she sputtered and grew a health red on her face, though she didn't try to pull away. Misty. She called out as he rested his chin atop her head. She gave a grunt of acknowledgement. What's wrong? Ever since I mentioned Cerulean City, you've been very quiet and withdrawn. Naruto grasped her shoulders and pushed her away from him to take a look at her face, his eyes locking with her beautiful and emotive teal orbs. Misty closed her eyes for a few minutes before sighing and nodding at his question, willing to finally speak about what was troubling her. The day that you saved me was also the day that I left home. That home is the Cerulean City Gym where I am one of the 4 gym leaders. She looked up at Naruto to see that he was paying full attention to her, which pleased her greatly. I have 3 older sisters called Daisy, Violet and Lily. All of which were increasingly beautiful, together they are called the Sensational Sisters. They would taunt me about how I'm the ugly duck of the family mercilessly almost daily. They don't care about Pokemon battling and only like performing those stupid water ballets or dances or whatever they're called. She snapped at the end before calming herself down, sighing in frustration. I left in a temper, claiming that I would never come back here until I was a water Pokemon master. I'm not really looking forward to seeing them again, but I will put up with it because you are my friend. She claimed passionately and nervously looked at Naruto again when she didn't hear anything from her usually talkative friend. Naruto just stood there staring at Misty with a thoughtful look on his face as she scratched his chin, as if contemplating something. Just as Misty was about to call out to the blonde trainer, he spoke up. Your sisters are liars, he said with a firm and confident voice. Misty just looked at him in confusion, wondering what he meant by that. She didn't have long to wonder as Naruto opened his mouth again. While can't say I seen a lot of females, I can say with the utmost confidence that you, Misty Waterflower, are one of the few truly beautiful girls I know. Misty's blush from earlier returned full force from his deceleration. Especially your eyes, he said as Misty's blush reached dangerous levels. Misty brought a hand up to stroke the bottom of her eyes with light hands as she breathed out my eyes. Questionably. Flattered and timid, not a normal set of emotions seen on the more often than not fiery and stubborn trainer. Naruto nodded almost sagely as he spoke with an unwavering voice, completely oblivious to what he was doing to his female companion. Yes, your eyes, they look so much like the ocean that you so love, plus, they tend to do this sparkling thing whenever you're happy. He gave the scarlet-faced Misty a soft smile. Not like his usual pixie grins, and Misty was quick to decide that she liked these a lot more than his normal look. Misty stood there as Naruto took casual steps towards his second gym battle, staring out blankly, her face just as bright as the morning sun. Did this idiot really just say all of those things to her and act like it was nothing? You can't say things like that to a lady and not expect them to not feel greatly flattered or massively disgusted, depends on who's give out the compliment really. In this situation, it was more the former and it both pleased and embarrassed Misty greatly. She shook her head to clear her thoughts as she ran to catch up with her blonde-haired friend as he entered the gym, trying to ignore the rapid beat of her excited heart and the lingering warmth from both his words and his touch. Inside the Cerulean City Gym. As soon as the two entered through the glass door, their eyes were assaulted by the combined voice of possibly 100 different people. Naruto and Misty looked at each other, one with a look of confusion and amusement, while the other had a look of shame and annoyance. Don't really need to tell you which one was which. Deciding to follow the hall to the source of the voice, the pair turned a corner and walked into the dark main room of the gym. Misty face-palmed when she saw what was making the crowd so crazy. Naruto on the other hand couldn't help but let out a few giggles. Because, stood there waving to the cheering audience were 3 females that looked similar to the last. Misty sighed with dismay as she looked down from where she and Naruto stood overlooking everything. She turned her head to look at the blonde and had to hold back the impulse to punch his lights out when she saw that he was sniggering at what though she was not entirely sure. Naruto, those 3 down there are my sisters. The one with the blonde hair with the same eyes as me is Daisy, she's the oldest and second most mature, right behind yours truly. Next is Violet, the one with the blue hair and reddish eyes, she doesn't normally pick on me, but she is still annoying most of the time. Finally is Lily, the one with pink hair and lavender eyes. She is the most childish out of the 4 of us. She listed off to Naruto while he looked over the sisters with an emphatic eye as they walked off stage and down a door to the left. Naruto stood to the side while pulling Misty with him as the crowd funneled out of the stanza towards the front doors, all the while talking about what a great show that was. Naruto saw Misty clench her fist out of the corner of his eye and gave her arm a supportive squeeze to which she smiled at. When the crowd had finally dwindled down to a few people, Naruto decided to follow after the sisters, Misty right behind him, to challenge them to a match, if they'd be willing to of course. Besides, Misty said she was also a Cerulean City gym leader, so if it really came to it, then he could always challenge her. He had wanted to fight her for a while anyway, plus, it would be a good time to see if his secret training with his secret Pokemon paid off. The two walked down the spiral staircase at a steady pace, no communication between them, but Naruto understood why. Misty was preparing herself for meeting her sisters again so soon after she had run off without looking too weak. Wow! Naruto exclaimed as they reached the bottom of the stairs. It's like an aquarium down here. He ran over to the glass with childlike excitement as a pot of multicolored fish swam by. Misty shook her head with a smile, he sure was a happy and carefree guy, that Naruto. Her smile however dropped as she heard the unmistakable voices of her sisters grow louder from down the hall as they walked the direction of the pair but had not seen them yet. Naruto appeared right beside Misty's side, having felt her mood decline slightly, an act the Misty surprisingly took comfort in. "Misty?" cried Lily when she saw her younger sister stood along with a rather hot blonde next to her in front of her, Daisy and Violet, making the rest of the sensational sisters finally take notice of the two. Lily ran up to Misty with a taunting smile. "Like, what are you doing here? It's, like, a surprise to see you here so, like, soon, didn't you say that you weren't gonna come back until you are a water-type master? Like." She looked over at the onlooking and unnamed blonde as he stood slightly to the right with his arms crossed and a blank face. So that's why she was so dead set against coming here. "I'm sorry Misty." Naruto thought to himself with guilt, though did have a giant sweat drop on his head. How could anyone use the word like so much in one sentence? Daisy was the second one to run over as she threw her arms around Misty's shoulders and brought her in close. "And how is that totally hot blonde over there?" She smiled a teasing smile when she saw her younger sister's face gain a slight pink tinge to it. "Is he, you're befreeing?" she whispered teasingly. Her smile only grew in size when Misty's cute pink launched into a beautiful scarlet as she sputtered in embarrassment. Unlike her sisters, Violet walked towards the mysterious blonde that came in with her sister. "Hello," she said cheerfully when she was close enough. "My name's Violet Waterflower." She wrapped the towel that she was using to dry her hair around her neck while sending the young man a friendly smile. "What's your name?" she asked as the tall blonde let his arms loose from their crossed position on his chest. Naruto sent Violet his normal pixie grin, causing the second eldest of the Waterflower siblings to blush at the attractive male. Naruto mentally breathed a sigh of relief, secretly happy that she didn't share the same speech mannerisms as her sisters. "Hello, my name is Naruto Uzumaki Ketchum from Pallet Town, and I am here to challenge the gym for a Cascade badge." He spoke with a strong and polite voice, a happy smile on his face. That smile, however, dropped when he heard her groan out in annoyance. "What's wrong?" he asked with a guarded tone, thinking that she was dismissing his challenge. Violet let out a frustrated sigh as she ran her fingers through her long blue lavender hair. "Not another from Pallet Town," she sighed again while shaking her head. "Seal." She called out as a white and small Pokemon waddled its way to her side. Seal opened its mouth, causing its tongue to roll out and present a blue teardrop-looking object. "Here," she said as she grabbed the small blue metal-looking object. "This is the Cascade badge, take it, it's yours. With all of our in the Poke Center we couldn't really have a battle," she said as she presented the badge to Naruto. "Besides, none of yous really want to battle anyway, not after we got completely destroyed by two other trainers from Pallet Town." She shrugged helplessly, her hand still outstretched with the pal facing upwards, Naruto next badge in her hand. Naruto looked at Violet with narrowed eyes, feeling only slightly insulted but incredibly pissed off. He took a calming breath to prevent himself from yelling out in rage. Even if Misty was at odds with him, they were still her family and he didn't want to insult them, despite the growing urge to. "No thank you, I want to earn my badge, not have it given to me from pity, laziness or lack of spirit on the leader's part," he said after a few moments to collect himself, his tone dead with a hint of anger to it. "Thanks but no thanks," Naruto said sarcastically as he shook his head at Violet and turned to walk away, leaving one shocked sensational sister standing there with her arms still held out like an idiot. Just as Naruto was about to leave he heard Misty's voice call out to him. "Naruto." She ran up to him, having seen the byplay between Naruto and her sister. Naruto turned around to look at his friend with questioning eyes. "If you want to get into the Pokemon League, then you have to collect all 8 badges. You know this, so why did you reject it when Violet offered you the Cascade badge?" she asked curiosity, thinking about what his answer was more than likely going to be. Naruto looked at Misty with fierce eyes and a burning determination. "When I set out on my Pokemon journey, I said to my mom and grandfather figure that I would prove to them that my Pokemon and me were strong. We were going to prove that to the world and bring fame to my hometown by becoming champion of all the regions. I know that I can't achieve my dream if I can't enter the league, but to truly achieve anything, to truly feel like it mattered, then you have reached your goals with blood, sweat and tears. Shortcuts and cheats are the ways of the pathetic and weak-willed. I am not weak-willed, I will become champion, I will achieve my dream, and I promise to you and to anyone else that wants to hear it. I, Naruto Uzumaki Ketchum, will not take the coward's way out, that's a promise of a lifetime." He moved his hand in a sweeping motion from left to right. Misty listened with wide eyes, the pure certainty in his voice awed her. He had full confidence in himself and Pokemon. To be honest, it made her feel warm and hot at the same time. She gave Naruto a grin, her face a red that she hadn't noticed yet. In that case she spoke casually, as if talking about the weather before she pulled out a Pokeball and pointed it at the stunned Naruto. I, Misty Waterflower, the fourth sensational sister and leader of the Cerulean City Gym, accept your challenge on my gym for the Cascade Badge, she shouted dramatically as Naruto grinned back at her, his eyes almost glowing with excitement, his earlier frustrations all but forgotten. Naruto nodded with a thumbs up as the two made their way back towards the pool. Both Misty and Naruto took their positions, Misty on a red floating island in the pool, while Naruto took the blue one across from her. 3 yellow foam island floated about between the two. Probably for non-water types, Naruto thought to himself as he quickly made a plan to combat the water Pokemon that were almost guaranteed to appear. The two looked at each other, eye silence for a while before Misty spoke up, her voice carrying over to Naruto from across the water. This is a trainer versus gym leader battle. We will both only use 2 Pokemon each. The winner is decided by whose Pokemon faint first or who surrenders. That all right, Naruto? You catch that? She called out and smiled when she saw him nod without a word. I was planning to challenge you to a battle, but I didn't think it would happen this soon. She enlarged her chosen Pokemon's ball and got into a throwing position. Naruto just smirked as he reached for one of the luxury balls clipped to his waist and enlarged it, making Misty all the more pumped. She was finally going to see what he had caught and what he had keep a secret from her and Brock. Naruto got into his own throwing position, his right arm posed as if he was reaching for a sword on his left side, his left arm just above his right, his hand covering his face slightly. Naruto looked at the Pokeball in his hand with a soft warm look. Only had you for 3 days and your determination to become strong has truly impressed me. This is our first battle together and I do hope it goes well. He cut himself off as both he and Misty threw their Pokeballs high into the air, calling out the name of the Pokemon inside. Let's do this, Apollo, I call Stereo. The two looked at each other in silence for a while before Misty spoke up, her voice carrying over to Naruto from across the water. This is a trainer versus gym leader battle. We will both only use 2 Pokemon each. The winner is decided by whose Pokemon faint first or who surrenders. That all right, Naruto? You catch that? She called out and smiled when she saw him nod without a word. I was planning to challenge you to a battle, but I didn't think it would happen this soon. She enlarged her chosen Pokemon's ball and got into a throwing position. Naruto just smirked as he reached for one of the luxury balls clipped to his waist and enlarged it, making Misty all the more pumped. She was finally going to see what he had caught and what he had keep a secret from her and Brock. Naruto got into his own throwing position, his right arm posed as if he was reaching for a sword on his left side, his left arm just above his right, his hand covering his face slightly. Naruto looked at the Pokeball in his hand with a soft warm look. Only had you for 3 days and your determination to become strong has truly impressed me. This is our first battle together and I do hope it goes well. He cut himself off as both he and Misty threw their Pokeballs high into the air, calling out the name of the Pokemon inside. Let's do this, Apollo, I call Stereo. Now. With a flash of white light, the 2 Pokemon were sent launching to the floating island in front of their individual trainer. Misty was momentarily thrown off by the strange name, not knowing a Pokemon called that. Her confusion vanished when the beam of white light shaped itself into the adorable brown EV Pokemon. Well, most EV were adorable, this one however seemed to bare its ivory teeth and take the stance of a hunter. Naruto. She called out to her challenger, ignoring the background gushing of her sisters over the cute Pokemon. It's that EV, Apollo, I think you called it, one of the ones you caught when we were on our way here. Misty asked, she was sure it was, seeing as the Pokemon had came out of the strange balls that Naruto had on him. Naruto nodded with a cool and calm look, proud of the shape and form of Apollo, the last 3 days of training obviously showing despite Artemis' distrust of him still. She is going to be a hard case to win over, he thought to himself as an image of the cold and detached to everyone, but her brother shiny evolution Pokemon flashed through his mind. I'm just lucky Apollo was able to convince her to join and at least listen to me in battle. Boy, did that discussion take a while. After a lot of promises and pleas from both Apollo and Naruto, Artemis had finally cracked and accepted his proposal. Oh, and by the way, he's a guy. Misty Naruto spoke out, offhandedly giving the piece of information to the orange-haired gym leader. Anyway, he called out as the battle-ready look in his eyes made the 2 multicolored orbs glow slightly for a brief second before they froze over into the eyes of a veteran. Something that confused Misty because she was well aware that he was a new trainer. That however was not the thing that caught her eye the most. She knew she had seen it for sure now. His eyes had lit up, literally lit up, as in she saw them glow a dark blue for a split second. Just like when he was about to fight Brock back in Pewter City. She had shrugged it off as the angle of the light hitting his eyes weird, but now, she wasn't so sure. Let's start this party, Misty. Despite his hard but calm eyes, she could still hear the warm and friendly tone in his voice. She nodded her head without a word as her sisters looked on, waiting to see if the ugly duck of the family had improved since the few weeks she had been gone. Misty jumped in first, deciding to try and throw Naruto off with a sudden assault. Staryu, jump into the water and dive down the use rapid spin. Her starfish Pokemon let out a grunt as it followed her command to the letter without hesitation, jumping into the crystal clear pool with a splash, sending water everywhere. Naruto and Apollo both tensed as their eyes darted around, ready for anything. Naruto soon spotted a shadow appear on the surface of the water and rapidly increase in size. Apollo, jump when I say now and use swift downward immediately afterwards. Naruto whispered to the brown Pokemon, who nodded with a small nod, having easily heard his trainer with his sensitive hearing. He would not mess up his first battle with his nice and amazing new trainer. This was his chance to prove to both himself and Naruto that he had improved from that weak EV he found crying in the forest. Staryu, now. Misty yelled as she punched the air with her left fist, a confident smile on her face. The star-looking Pokemon shot out of the water with startling speed, spinning in the air towards the still EV, who stared at his approaching target. Naruto watched as Staryu got closer and closer to Apollo, and just as the Pokemon was about to hit, he called out the signal and set the plan in motion. Now. Apollo reacted as soon as he heard the voice of Naruto and leaped high into the air above, making Staryu miss and stop in confusion. Energy formed around the airborne EV and took the shape of several yellow stars. Take this, yelled Apollo as he sent them at his opponent with a jerk of his head. The stars shot down, leaving a glowing trail behind them as they flew towards their target. Misty narrowed her eyes as she waved her arm from left to right in a sweeping motion. Staryu, dodge and use water gun, quickly. She called out her counter-attack, and just like before, her Pokemon acknowledged the command with a grunt and got to work. The star Pokemon ducked and dodged almost every single attack, but the last one stuck it right in the jewel on its face, sending the Pokemon flying back with smoke from the impact. Staryu quickly corrected itself in mid-air and shot out a high-pressured line of water towards the still airborne EV while landing on its island. Naruto almost winced at his error as Apollo took the attack directly to the chest and was sent back, slamming into the wall with a cry. Crap, Naruto cursed to himself. He couldn't dodge because he was in the air and took a strong attack. He stopped beating himself up when Apollo sent him a stern glare as he shot up to his feet, his fur soaked in the limp. Naruto nodded with determination as EV hobbled over to him and took the same stance from before with labored breaths. Apollo, you alright? Naruto asked with worry in his voice, his face the same as before. Of course I am. Who do you think you are talking to? Came the snappy and irritated comeback from the younger EV sibling. Naruto almost let out a chuckle. Apollo sure had changed from the polite and shy EV he had found in the forest 3 days ago. It showed that the Pokemon at least trusted his trainer enough to show himself. Naruto did shake his head though as he called his next attack. Apollo, use baby doll eyes to lower Staryu's attacking power. This time he couldn't stop a small chuckle as Apollo let out a small growl of rather inappropriate and crude words at him, but he still did his order. The EV's eyes grow watery and its lip began to tremble as a couple of sniffles came from the small Pokemon, who could feel his male pride slipping away as the 3 watching sisters all let out a combined awe with the cuteness. Misty had to force herself to remain quiet and contain her own squeal. She was Misty Waterflower and she was strong, fiery, tomboyish and proud, but most of all. She did not squeal, scream, giggle or blush. Except with the blonde idiot that managed to force all of the things she normally didn't do out of her. Not that she was mad or anything, but still, it was embarrassing. She cleansed those thoughts from her mind as focused on the battle once more. Misty could easily see the discomfort of her Staryu as it snuffled from side to side, trying to avoid those damn puppy eyes that were making it feel bad from inflicting pain on such a cute Pokemon. Naruto smirked as he watched his plan working out perfectly. Use quick attack combined with a normal tackle. Apollo, he spoke calmly as to not let Misty hear from her spot across the battlefield. Apollo's eyes hardened as they lost the watery eyes, replaced by irate icy orbs. Naruto almost winced at that look. He was going to get it from his youngest Pokemon after this battle, he just knew it. Apollo crouched low to the floating island as a layer of white energy covered his fur and seemed to be dragged into his body. With a cry, Apollo burst forward, the water behind him rippling as the yellow float island was sent back a bit by the force. The brown evolution Pokemon flew above the water towards the still Staryu, who stood there confused from the sudden change happening so fast. Before it, Misty or her sisters had time to comprehend what was happening, Apollo slammed into the starfish Pokemon, the sudden wind force making the water around them ripple and swirl slightly. Misty watched with wide eyes as her Staryu was sent flying back with a crack on its gem. The water-type Pokemon shot past Misty and collided with the wall behind her. The starfish Pokemon was seemingly stuck to the wall as its bright red gem started to flicker for a bit before it went completely black as it slid down to the ground with a weak groan. Misty raised her Pokeball at the downed Pokemon in a daze, the red beam bringing the unconscious Pokemon back to her side. For only having the little guy for a few days, she looked at the heavily panting brown Pokemon with wonder and shook. He sure is powerful. She thought as she clutched her second chosen Pokemon tightly. She locked eyes with the blonde opposite her, forcing down the blush that she knew was coming. She sent him a smile and a nod as she opened her mouth to speak. "Well done, Naruto. This is one of the Pokemon you caught en route for, right?" She asked with a cute, as Naruto secretly thought, questioning look on her face. "Yeah, I've had Apollo for the past 3 days." He reached down to scratch the tired Pokemon behind his ear, making the small thing purr as its right hind leg jerked in pleasure, despite him being in pain from the attack he had received to his chest from earlier. "This little guy just loves to train, so I take him and most of my other Pokemon out to go training earlier in the morning, before either you or Brock are awake yet," he explained to the fourth sensational sister, who nodded with a look on her face. Misty held her Pokeball out to Naruto in a challenging manner, her usual self-confident smile present on her face. "No matter how strong you are, I will defeat you, Naruto. My pride as both a gym leader and a water-type specialist depends on this," she declared loudly with a determined and beepy look on her face as she reared her arm back to throw her next Pokemon. In the stands watching the battle, the three sensational sisters looked on with wide eyes. They had seen Misty battle multiple times before and it was pretty boring to watch. The youngest Waterflower just didn't seem to really put her all into any of the previous battles, but this time, it was different. The look in her eyes, the smile on her face and even her stance. All three could tell she was having a lot of fun, despite losing at the moment. "Like, wow," spoke Lily as she looked at the ugly duck of the family. "Misty is so like, enjoying herself down there." She almost squealed at the look on her sister's face. "Oh my god," cried Daisy as she covered her mouth with her hand while bouncing in her seat excitedly. "She so like has a crush on that hot blonde." Her eyes went half-lidded as she looked at the only male in the building at the moment, her look full of a strange emotion. "Not that I can blame her. He is so hot. Look at his blonde sunny hair and amazing body." She moaned as she closed her eyes. "I would just love to inspect him for one of our water ballets." Daisy purred the words while licking her lips. The silent Violet just blushed at the suggestive tone in her sister's voice, clearly picking up on the not-so-hidden massage. Though, she couldn't deny wanting to inspect the hot and attractive blonde herself. For the water ballet, of course. What else would she do it for anyway? Not for her own burning needs, that's for sure. Or that's what she convinced her mind to think, though the heat between her legs were a completely different story. In the pool below, Naruto suddenly shivered as a weird feeling washed all over his body, making him fear for his purity for a moment. He looked down at his heavily panting and damaged friend who stood there with an iron resolve, wanting to prove himself, Naruto suspected. That was the only reason he wasn't calling him back right at this moment. He knew that feeling of wanting to show someone who took the time to actually take care of you and train you that their effort was not a waste. He nodded with respect at the small brown dog, admiring his determination. Apollo seemed to sense what he was looking at as the Pokemon looked at him from over his twitching with pain shoulder. Naruto could clearly see the grin on the evolution Pokemon's muzzle and grinned back as he got into a loose stance with his hands by his sides and his legs shoulder-width apart. "We got this, Naruto," Apollo barked out, trying to hide the pain in his tone with joy and encouragement. Naruto knew what he was doing, but nodded his head with a smirk anyway, before looking back up at Misty as the fiery trainer threw her Pokeball with a shout of Starmie. "I choose you." The spinning red and white exploded with energy as the silvery beam shaped itself into Misty's chosen Pokemon. The evolved form of Staryu grunted as it flexed its body, its gem glowing brightly, prepared for battle. Deciding not to play the waiting game again, Misty decided to push the advance, not allowing Naruto nor Apollo any time to recover and gain any type of breathing room. "Starmie. End this quick with a water pulse," yelled Misty as she pointed at her wounded opponent, wondering why Naruto had yet to call back his injured EV. An orb of watery blue started to hover and increase in size in front of the purple star as each of his 8 appendages curled around the attack. With a cry, Starmie sent the ball launching at the panting form of Apollo, a circle of water shooting out from around it. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he looked at the quickly approaching ball, as swirls of blue water were left in its wake. His gaze drifted towards Apollo, quickly thinking up a plan. That was until he saw Apollo trying to not place any weight at all on his back right hind leg. Probably sprained or Arceus forbid, broken. That's gonna limit his mobility a lot, and seeing the speed of Misty's first attack, this is gonna be Apollo's last move, he thought grimly as he faced the predicament he and Apollo were in. He sighed with regret before his eyes hardened with strength and determination. His right arm flashed out with his finger spread wide at Misty's side, his stance as strong as his slightly glowing blue eyes. Apollo used swift. Tear through that water pulse and continue on to Starmie. He shouted out with excitement on his face and in his voice. This time, instead of sending them in a burst, Apollo let out a continuous stream of golden star after golden star, each impacting the orb of water. As the two collided, the crater of the room of covered by smoke as the force of each attack battled for dominance. The Apollo let out attack after attack, each as strong as the last. Though Naruto could see the frequency of each star start to lower as Apollo began to suffer from exhaustion. Suddenly the smoke was ripped apart as the spinning sphere of water cut through the weakened resistance from Apollo, who just slumped down to the foam floor of his island, panting as his eyes turned to swirls, signaling his unconscious state. Using his inhuman reaction time and reflexes, Naruto grabbed his Pokeball and recalled Apollo, just as Starmie's water ball slammed into where the EV stood only moments ago and exploded out in a shockwave of water. Naruto looked at the black and gold ball in his hand with a warm smile. "You did awesome, Apollo. All of your training pulled off. Take some rest, you defiantly deserve it," he whispered softly, pride clearly detectable by everyone that heard him speak. He raised his left arm as he looked back at a confused Misty and Starmie as they looked around for EV, not knowing Naruto had recalled him on account on their vision having been blocked by the smoke. "Apollo passed out from exhaustion before your attack hit him, so I recalled him before it hit and caused extra damage," he clarified as Misty lost her confused look, gained a victorious smile on her face at the news. He didn't wait for Misty or anyone to say a word as he grabbed the second luxury ball in his possession and bring it up to look at it with firm eyes, the release trigger facing towards him as he enlarged it. "Artemis, I know you don't trust me at the moment. Or anyone really. But I would be honored if you give me a chance to prove myself to you. I promise I will not let you down." He brought his arm back as his eyes hardened with fierce determination and battle resolve, then he threw the ball without even a grunt. "Fight with me, Artemis." The ball burst open with a flash of white just like any other Pokeball, but something strange and rare happened afterwards. A shower of golden sparkles followed the beams, each twinkling in a rather beautiful display. As the white light finally disappeared, an EV just like the last appeared before everyone. This one's color, however, was greatly different from the brown coat of the one before. A glossy and shiny silver glinted as the light traveled along the soft-looking coat, red eyes firm and ready, along with its stance. Just like the one from before, it looked ready for battle. Up in the stands with the sisters. "Like, wow," breathed both Lily and Daisy together as their eyes sparkled with delight at the stunning display. Though Daisy did have a strange glint in her eyes, along with a mesmerized look as she started to breathe slightly deeper than normal. "Is he, like, a Pokemon performer?" asked Lily as she kept her eyes on the handsome blonde as the golden light seemingly danced around his form, making him look cool with his arms crossed and majestic as his face lit up from the stray sparks and stars. Violet spoke up before Daisy had a chance to speak her no doubts less than pure thoughts. "No, I think he is only a trainer." She then gained a thoughtful expression as she crossed her arms under her ample breasts while still looking at the blonde below them. "Though, he probably could if he wanted to. His Pokemon are perfectly well taken care of, I mean look at that coat. I wonder why it's silver though, his last EV was brown like most," she questioned at the end, no sure about the reasons why this one was different from the one from before. Daisy voiced her thoughts to the pair as Violet prepared to force down the blush she know was more than likely to come. "I think that it's silver because it's a very rare version of the EV called a shiny or something. I wonder where he found one like that. They are amazingly hard to find." She said her shocking normal thoughts as Lily continued to watch Naruto while Violet just looked at her with wide eyes, something Daisy picked up on. "What?" she asked to the second eldest of the family. Violet's mouth worked for a bit as she looked for the right words to say. Well. It's just that you didn't say anything lustful at all, which is surprising because you normally do around boys like Naruto, nor did you say like anywhere. Something you do a lot which is insanely annoying by the way," she said to her blonde sister with her eyes still wide. Daisy sent her a mock hurt look as she dramatically put the back of her hand to her forehead while she wailed. "I am deeply wounded by your words, sister. I only say like so much because it annoys both you and Misty a lot." Then she sent Violet a teasing grin as her eyes went half-lidded again. "If you want me to say anything lustful as you said then I most certainly can. I want to feel his tight muscles that he hides under his clothes, I want to see just how long his sword is, I want to fist his golden hair as he drives into me again and again, and a guy." Her voice went lower and more sultry each time she said the word again. She probably would gone on for a little bit long if she wasn't suddenly cut off by the hand of a dangerously red Violet. Daisy laughed in her mind, taking great pleasure in the successful teasing and joke. Daisy thought as images of the act started to fill her mind. "I won't mind actually getting to know him when he gets a little older. No matter how unbelievably hot and sexy he might be, he isn't worth the jail time. 6 more years then maybe," she determined as she licked her lips absent-mindedly while looking down at the only other blonde in the room, ignoring the red face of her sisters, both having seen her seductive act. "Oh yes, I can't wait for 6 more years. I'm sorry Misty, but you will have a compaction on your hands, more than likely not just from me, but a lot of other girls that blonde can pull." Numerous females, both girls and women, across the world, sneezed simultaneously wondering who could possibly talking about them. Back down in the pool below. Naruto shivered as he suddenly feared for the safety of his innocence and willed his body not to try and cover his already clothing-cloaked crotch. He forced the feeling away as he tried to focus on the up-and-coming fight, the first battle with eldest TV sibling. Seeing Misty's confused and slightly odd look, he decided to explain the different color scheme of his still growling silver EV. I can see you are confused about why Artemis looks so different from her brother. It's the same reason why Masami is a yellow Vulpix instead of a normal orange and red Vulpix. Artemis is a shiny Pokemon, meaning that not only are their colors different, but they are also at least 2 times stronger than their normal counterpart. Naruto sent the shocked Misty an eye-squinting grin, making him look just like the Vulpix he mentioned. So that means that this is going to be a hard battle on your part. I hope you are ready because me and Artemis will be coming at you with full force. His silver Pokemon's growls increased in volume, as if agreeing with her trainer's claim, before she barked out a series of short yips. Misty just smirked back, accepting the challenge in the battle. Don't get BP human, I'm only doing this because Apollo asked me to give you a try, she almost growled at the person behind with a cold voice, something only Naruto could pick up on. Said blonde just sweat dropped at the emotion or lack thereof towards him, along with the barely hidden hostility at him. Naruto sighed as he thought about the state of his and Artemis' relationship, then he forced it out of his mind as a problem he had to deal with at a later date. Artemis, start this off with a retaliate and avenge our fallen Apollo, cried Naruto dramatically, as Artemis's growls started to become dangerous at the mention of her brother's state. Her silver body was coated in an aura of red, her rage almost manifesting outside. With a cry of, "This is for Apollo, you bastard." She cleared the distance between her and the still dazed Starmie in an instant. Before the purple star or its trainer had time to react, the silver and red blur crashed into Starmie and dealt the deadly blow, having been used after the defeat of someone else on the team. Artemis was sent airborne by the force as Starmie was sent flying back, marks and scars all over its body. Starmie corrected itself in the air and faced towards its silver opponent, ready for battle despite the severe damage done to its body. Artemis narrowed her eyes with anger, her rage fueling her attacking power, her anger caused by the condition of her brother, even if he wanted to battle. Both Misty and Naruto called out their next attack. Artemis, use Shadow Ball full power. Let's go Starmie, use Bubble Beam. Artemis opened her mouth as dark energy gathered in her maw and started to take the shape of a perfect orb, shadowy whips falling from the attack. Her opponent's body glowed in aqua blue as the energy focused to the central top point. Misty's eyes widened at the Ghost-type move, defiantly a kill shot against her Psychic-type Pokemon, if she ever saw one, especially with the double damage from Artemis being a shiny. Crap. She thought as the orb continued to grow in size, worrying both her and Starmie. Naruto smirked, and so did Artemis strangely as he shouted out the Go Fire. He yelled as his silver EV let loose her attack, a small horizontal ring left in its wake as it shot towards Starmie with startling speed. Misty panicked as the no-doubt knockout attack rocketed towards her injured Pokemon. Starmie, go. She yelled out in desperation, a last-ditch effort to win the match. Starmie grunted as a stream of bubbles shot at the fast-approaching ball of dark, but to it and Misty's dismay, the attack merely cut through the beam like a knife through butter, not even slowing in the slightest. Starmie tried to curl in on itself as the ball exploded, dealing super effective damage with a mighty bang, making the wind pick up suddenly, as everyone but Naruto covered their face to protect themselves from the sudden change. When everything calmed, the results were shown as Misty let out a startled cry. Because there, bobbing up and down in the water lifelessly was her Pokemon, littered with cuts and bruises, its normally pink gem and unsettling black. Naruto cheered out in victory and was just about to hug Artemis before she recalled herself to her Pokeball without even a grunt. He pouted in disappointment, faintly hearing a squeal from somewhere to his far right, before he whipped it off his face and walked over to Misty once he had reached the side of the pool and got off his floating island. Misty recalled her passed-out Starmie, absent-mindedly noting the fact that Naruto and her sisters were walking towards her as she whispered thanks to her Pokemon's ball. Well, she sighed as Naruto came to a stop in front of her. Well done Naruto. You won the Cascade badge fair and square. As hard as she tried, she couldn't help but let disappointment leak through her genuinely happy mood at her friend's victor. Naruto picked up on Misty's hidden feelings almost immediately as he sent her a comforting grin, to which she sent him a reassuring smile. As they seemed to have a silent conversation, both completely missed the approaching trio of waterflowers until they were right on top of them. Literally in Naruto's case as a beautiful blonde bullet rammed into his side, almost sending him and his assailant into the water next to them, but Naruto was able to catch himself as he wrapped his arms around whoever shot at him with a flying hug. Just as he was about to yell and push the person away, his world exploded with bliss as a soft and warm hand rubbed his cheeks. Right on his whiskers. Against his will, Naruto let out a low noise from the back of his throat, something that sounded shockingly similar to a purr. He shuddered as the petting got stronger while he heard multiple high-pitched squeals of kawaii. Sadly, none of that mattered as he let the pleasure overwhelm him while he nuzzled into the source while only one thought was in his mind. Dear God. Whoever this is, can I keep them? The end. So how was this part? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this part with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.